All right, everybody, we're live. Happy Friday. Today is August 21st. You're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with us at our Twitter chat, which is at hashtag CMGR Hangout, where I know a lot of you are watching right now. If you love what you're seeing today and you have an idea for a topic, you can head over to our website at mycmgr.com, click on participate, fill out the form. Sherry, Dom, and I get those, and we'll get back to you. So it's really this is your hangout, it's your topics, your friends, your ideas. We're just here to facilitate. So, all right, what do we have for you this week? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, and this is the topic is self-care for community managers. And burnout's a real thing, and it's running rampant through our entire community management industry or community industry. So this myth about being able to or needing to be available 24/7 and just sacrificing the rest of your life, it's not healthy, and it needs to stop. So today it stops, everybody. But if you don't want to take our word for it, we have a bunch of articles that Sherry researched. They'll be down below at some point in the video description, so you can check those out. I get it. You're here to serve, and you want to be available, but the reality is, you just can't be taking care of your community if you're not taking care of yourself. So with that, I'll let everyone introduce themselves, who they are, and if they're burnt out. So go for it.
Sorry about that. I couldn't get my unmute to happen. So first goof up of the day, second goof up of the day. So guys, don't worry about it. I've got it taken care of. My name is Susan Silver, and I am the community manager for OneUp, which is small business accounting software. And our software helps business owners focus on the things that they're really passionate about and the things that we really love, and that's what our community is about. So that's who I am.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Rohde, and I'm the community manager for Magento, which is an open source e-commerce platform, as well as co-produce CMGR Hangout here.
Hey folks, I'm Evan Hamilton. I'm a community lead at Coursera. We make the world's best education accessible to everyone, and I'm really glad it's Friday. I'm feeling burnt out myself.
Hola, everyone. My name is Dom. I am a community manager with Be the Change Revolutions, as well as co-host here with Sherry and Brew. And I, too, am excited to talk about burnout because it's a real thing, and excited to learn from some of the best at hopefully not burning out.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Coleman. I am currently in between opportunities, formerly at Town Squared and at Ning, and I'm actually on the lesser burnt out stage today and this week because I've been enjoying the fun employment time. So I've been kind of getting in touch with a lot of the self-care aspects this week, kind of propelling me into heading into my next thing.
Hi everybody, I'm Carrie Jones, Director of Content for CMX, as well as Community Consultant. I also am on the lesser scale of burned out. I'm not burned out at all right now. I'm like that annoying girl who's happy. Yeah, so I'm feeling pretty good right now and ready to talk with you guys about self-care.
Hey guys, it's Brock. I'm also a community consultant. I'm actually tired but not burned out today, and I work on community for the Google Small Business community, and I've also started helping out Meshfire with their community management stuff. So that's words are easy. So those are the things I'm working on today, and I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about avoiding burnout.
Excellent. Hey, everybody. I am Brew, Director of Awesome with Be the Change Revolutions, and co-producer here at my CMGR Hangout. So yeah, I was just acting. I'm not really burnt out. I am a little hungover today, possibly, but not burnt out. Just keeping it real. So before we talk about self-care, what I'd love to hear from you guys is, what does self-care really mean to you? Don't everyone all jump in at once.
I'll go first.
There you go.
Shocker. I'll jump in. Self-care means going first when you want to, when nobody else is talking, and breaking the awkward silence. I think for me, so I have insomnia. So one of the biggest things that I try to do is either nap or get some sleep when I can, and basically listening to my body and just being like, stop. I spent the first 5 years of being a freelancer completely burnt out. Like this past year, I've finally gone back to normal. So self-care is definitely listening to your body, listening to your gut, and pushing yourself to take even 5 minutes out of your day to just kind of step away from the computer, even if it's in the middle of the day, if your stress levels are completely through the roof.
And that's kind of similar to what it means for me. For me, it's really about prioritization and making sure to prioritize me and my family and my friends, along with all of the things that I'm doing at work and in the professional community at the right times. So making sure that balance is correct for me.
And like leaping off of what Barack and Crystal have said, I think it's a lot about self-awareness and knowing yourself. And we all have different priorities here, like Crystal was saying. And Barack, mentioned that she has insomnia. We're all dealing with our own issues, our own challenges, and being aware of those challenges and what makes things feel good for you. What do you need to do to take care of yourself? To me, that's what self-care is. It's not what everybody else is doing. It's what's unique to who you are and your specific challenges.
When I think of self-care, I instantly think of the things that I give up when I'm busy, right? Like those things that I just don't make time for, like eating properly or going for a walk, showering. It's just, if you think about it, it's just like sometimes they're just simple things that you're giving up in the name of work. So. Just even the basics. So, what are some signs that you can look for to tell when you're approaching burnout? So, how do you know for yourself when you're hitting burnout? And then, what are some signs you see of others?
You know that feeling you get when you're hangry? Now, if you have that all the time, even after you just eat, you might be approaching burnout. It's sort of the just like general irritation, I think, is sort of my telltale sign. You're sort of just running on fumes, and just that sort of a thing. Sometimes I don't notice it myself. Just the world tends to piss me off, and it really takes a partner, I think, to sort of point that out to you.
Yeah, I definitely rely on others to, if my reaction weirds them out, then that's probably a good sign that I'm not self-censoring.
Yeah, mine is adding to the hangry feeling when the things that I actually enjoy stop being enjoyable. So the things that I take a break from the burnout, I stop enjoying them, and I don't even want to do that. I'm like, I need to take a step back and definitely kind of figure out what's going on. And I notice that a lot in other people too, when they're just down on the things that they would normally be enjoying and excited about, or short in when they're talking to you and they start being short. So those are the signs for me.
Yeah, same here. For me, it's like I'm an introverted person naturally, but I do love seeing my close friends. And when I start kind of actively avoiding going to social functions or hanging out with people because I just don't want to talk about life at the moment. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to hear the question of like, how's work going? Because I don't even want to get into it. That's for me when I know that I'm getting to the burnout point.
Yeah, I'll just add here that I've actually been through, I used to go through like burnout twice yearly. It was like a ritual that I had. So I think the signs for me really are just like not being able to get out of bed in the morning, or like not feeling motivated to do anything at all. And that's when you've let it go way beyond. I think that's from burnout into like, something much darker. But yeah, so making sure that, you don't get to that place is really, really important.
Yeah, I find that when those things that you identify as helping prevent burnout start seeming unappealing, that's when I know I'm approaching burnout. Like when I no longer feel like I have the energy to go on a run or to go on a hike or to do anything really, even just to hang out with people, that's when I know I'm definitely burning out, because those are the things that usually energize me and make me feel a lot better.
Yeah, the way I look at it, and I sort of, and it sort of plays into the question 1 too, like what is self-care? I have this thought. I don't know if anybody's ever read like the 5 love languages, but it talks about having like a quote unquote love tank, and you sort of have that like when you talk about working with communities, because you're putting so much of yourself out there, like you're really pouring out what, if you don't care for yourself and keep yourself filled up, and you're pouring out too much, that's when you sort of feel it. Like if you feel like you don't even have enough to give yourself, let alone to give anybody else, that's because community really does feel like you're giving it personally to people when you're working in this industry. So that's sort of the way that I look at it too. Like when you're just like, you feel yourself, it's hard for you to do anything for yourself, which means that it's going to be nearly impossible for you to do anything for anybody else.
It's interesting, Dom, because in other hangouts, when we've talked about the qualities, what makes a good community manager, almost everyone always says empathy, and being able to empathize, and that's that's something that actually does take a lot of your emotion, right? And so if you're in I would say that if your community is in a state of health where you have to empathize with it a lot, that probably burns you out pretty quickly. The other thing I think of as far as signs for me personally is my bad habits get worse. And so like, we all have those things we do that, are okay in moderation, but probably not great, when you're stressed, trying to just get relief. So I find myself just kind of tail spinning a little bit, when I start burning out.
Just to build on what both of you said, I mean, there are studies, if anyone's read The Power of Habit, there's a finite amount of willpower that everyone has. And you can build it up a bit as a muscle, but they've proven it's finite. And so I think we all feel like, we're like failing, we like didn't go for that run, or we had too many beers because we weren't strong enough. But truly, there's only so much you can do. So you really do have to limit how much willpower you're using, otherwise you're going to run out of it.
I want to rope back to something Dom and Evan brought up at the beginning as well, of the kind of noticing, when someone's reacting weirdly to something that you're saying. I think that's one of the really good, having a trusted coworker who can call you on that in a non-confrontational way and just kind of say like, hey, I think I didn't quite understand why you reacted that way. What's going on? Can really help kind of help you realize those signs when you don't realize them yourself, when they're so subconscious to you that you don't kind of register them.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too, like we're talking about having somebody else there to help, and how we know that it helps, because one of the signs for me, and I think we've sort of touched at it, is that you tend to get very internal. Like you tend to get more internal than you maybe even before. Like take the extrovert introvert thing out of it. Like you tend to be more just to yourself. And when you notice that happening, like whether you think that, man, I haven't really talked to anybody in a week other than on my job through Twitter, or if you realize, man, I haven't heard from Carrie in a while, I wonder if Carrie's doing all right. You know, those types of things are some of the signs I think you can sort of look for.
Just adding on that, I know that like we're talking about coworkers and people that we are around. What I found is I have friends that, one or two friends that know me that like, even if, it's gonna sound silly, but even by the way I say hello when we're talking on GChat, like they can be like, okay, what's wrong? Like they know, and because I've been working from home for 5 years, and I am an introvert, so I become a complete hermit and don't leave the apartment when things are super stressful. So I have like people that will actually pull me out of my own head, and I trust them to do that, to know when to push me to do it and to know when to leave me alone. So to have people around you like that, even if they're not physically there, but there's someone you trust, it's super important to build that.
I would say definitely what's helped me with my burnout most is having things like this, where people who have my profession, who go through the same struggles that I do, actually talk about what they're going through. Like the last conference I went to, everybody was really open and really honest, and I felt really uncomfortable sometimes, like, am I revealing too much backdoor things? But at the end, you felt so fulfilled by sharing those things with other professionals, and that made me, it helped deal with some of the burned out feelings that I was feeling and made me feel refreshed and better able to go back to work.
I mean, yeah, people say that you are a combination of the 5 people you spend most of your time with, and so I think that's, if you work from home especially, it's so important to make sure those 5 people are so well curated, who can like really get a sense for you and tell you when you're showing signs of burnout. So key. And so making sure that you're not letting one of those 5 people be someone really negative who pushes your boundaries is also really, really important, because you need people that will respect you and your introverted ways. I think a lot of us are introverts, and it's okay to like hole up in your apartment. I consider my dog one of those 5 people for me, so yeah, he gets me out of the house constantly, so that's been really important in my self-care routine.
Guys, I'm going to bring in a question here from Patrick Synergy Helen. Says, guys, how the hell do you sleep? I'm a total night owl, and I can't slow down and sleep enough. Sherry says she turns on scrubs. I instantly thought of the fact that a scrub is somebody who gets no love from me. But in all seriousness, how do you sleep, especially when you're wired?
Melatonin.
Well, you actually you had the bottle right there.
It's on my desk. It's on my desk.
For me, there's a couple big things. One is having a point at which you stop working, and maybe that seems obvious, but there's the great post from Amber Naslund about this, where even if that's a late, something you do very late in the evening, saying, I am done, like this is where I stop doing work and where I stop checking email is so key. And it's so easy to say, oh, well, I should just check my email really quick. Like maybe there's something important. There's never anything that's that important. If something is on fire, someone will text you, or it'll wait till morning. There have been maybe like 2 situations in my whole career where I actually needed to respond right then. But every time I look at my email, it stresses me out and keeps me up later. So saying I'm done, not looking at email, and then just sort of the standard recommended things of like, don't use a screen for the 30 minutes before you sleep are really key, because your brain is just like, screen, it's right here, that means email's right here, and like it's triggering things in your head versus a book is telling your brain, okay, we're done, we're not doing any more of that today.
Yeah, I agree with all that, and part of the thing I've done is I don't let my work email sync on my phone. So even when I have my phone next to me, once like the work hours are done, I don't check it unless I know there's a project we're working on. So so even as a consultant, I have 9 to 5 hours because I have one main client I work with. And for all the other projects I'm working on, I give myself, so I'm a night owl, so there are some nights where after like 9 o'clock I'm energized to write. And as a writer, you guys know, like, I'm sure you guys know how important it is to like go when the muse actually shows up when you've had writer's block for like weeks. So I will let my if I know that I'm going to be going to sleep late, I plan my day accordingly. And like, if I go to sleep at like 2:30, I'll shoot my manager an email and be like, hey, I might be a little off in the morning, but I just know that the next day is going to make up for that. But turning off the screen, I've been reading a lot more. So I'll have I don't have a Kindle. I have a Kindle now, but I'm not actually using it because I'm weird. But I have actual physical book that like I read. I don't bring my laptop into the bedroom with me anymore. So those things will definitely make a huge difference. Figure out your triggers, whatever they are. And if sometimes you have to stay up to do work, own that, but don't feel like you have to do that every night. Just if you're a writer, go with the writing. If you know you have a project to work on, go with it. Just goes back to listening to your body and listening to the needs of what you have to do.
I want to throw out there too, if screens are your way of unwinding, like playing mind-numbing games or anything like that, there are like blue light filter apps and stuff that you can add. And I found that those actually help so that it's easier to fall asleep when I do put the screen away.
I'll have to check that out because that is one of my ways of unwinding, playing like 2 Dots or 10-10, like just something super mindless that just kind of turns everything off. And I recommend, again, for people who do have to have like their work email on their phone or something like that, if you're not already using if you have an iPhone and you're not using the do not disturb function, to just like, I have that set from like 9:30 p.m. to 6:45 a.m. So it's like right before my alarm goes off, so that there's no vibrations coming through from it. People can get through if it's an emergency, but it's keeping it from being that additional. Even if I'm on it, I don't see the notifications coming in because it's on do not disturb. So it keeps me from kind of jumping from my mind-numbing thing into work mode.
The only thing that really works for me is to try to count as much stimulation as I can, so making sure I don't have any screens on, nothing that's going to wake me up, making sure all the lights are off. And I also struggle with insomnia because I have a lot of racing thoughts at night and anxieties that will come up at the end of the day that will keep me awake for hours. And so meditation has been very, very good for me my whole entire life, to sit there and to stop focusing on the thoughts and to focus on my breath and get my breathing to calm down. If I can get my breathing to not be so shallow, it gets much, much easier to fall asleep at night. And that's one of the tricks that I have, is just trying to count simulation and meditation.
For me, it's TV. I don't know what, there's something about TV that just puts me to sleep, which is very challenging to ever try to watch a movie, even during the day. But yeah, I don't know. Like, for me, it's like a nice way for me to turn my brain off. And I usually try to watch stuff that I don't care too much about, like just kind of dumb slapstick, like maybe comedies, things like that, where it's like it's not intense and I'm not trying to follow a storyline. That always just helps me declutter my brain, I guess, from the crazy day. All right, so where are we? We're on like question 3 now, right? Number 3. How can you work together with your employer to address and work through burnout? Ooh, this is a good one. I mean, I think it starts with just saying like, "Yo, I'm burnt out."
I think that's one of the biggest things. Obviously, if you do feel that, like, you need to tell them. Hopefully you work for an employer where you have that open line of communication where you can just say, "Hey, things are getting really tough for me." Because it's always better to be there than to be on the other side of them going, "Hey, why the hell isn't everything done?" And you're like, "Oh, because I was burnt out," and it's like way too late then. But I also think like preemptively, like if you're working for somebody and you've been burned out in jobs in the past, like let your employer know that. Be like, "I love my job, I love what I do, but this has happened before. I don't want it to happen again. What can we do to make sure that it doesn't?" I know that probably scares people because it's like admitting a weakness, to an employer, and when they're signing your paycheck, you don't necessarily always want to do that. But at the same time, you can find one or find an employer, hopefully, that you have a good enough relationship with that you can say that, and that's the dream, right? Is to just be able to be that honest with them, and be that upfront with it.
And I think when you're
Go ahead.
I think when you're entering that discussion, if you kind of look at what you've been doing and look at kind of maybe what you've been letting yourself kind of get bogged down in that can be offloaded onto other people, or that you can find a better way to do, like shift stuff to automation, see if you can get some dev time prioritized to create a dashboard if needed, instead of pulling metrics for 5 hours yourself every Sunday. Not that that's an exact example or anything. Just things like that. As much as you can have like specific things to say to them, to say these are things that we can work on to try to reduce this burnout, so that I can focus on what's not going to burn me out.
Yeah, building on that, I think to Dom's point, like the honesty and communication, it's scary, but it's key, because I've actually had, especially because like most of my job now is, majority of my job when I'm not engaging as a community manager is writing. That's like part of my job, and I'll just be like, look, there are times when I have to write at night. That means I have to take a couple hours during the day, but I will have the deadline. When I set the deadline to myself and what I owe you, like it'll get done, but it might not get done within these hours. And I will always update you. And like knowing your triggers, knowing your burnout triggers that we're talking about, and communicating that to your manager and your teammates will go a long way, because nobody wants an employee that's burnt out, that's not doing an effective job. Like nobody wants that, especially when you're in the community and representing the community and the face of the community, and you're frustrated. Nobody wants that. So I think the communication is key, and as scary as it is, it's that sets the best kind of relationships. Even if you're a freelancer or a full-timer, it'll go a long way.
I think you can also frame your language as like, I want to be the most productive I can be, and there's plenty of studies that show that we do our best thinking unconsciously while we're doing other things, that interruptions cause a huge amount of time to get back on track. I think you can talk about how, for me to be the most effective employee, I need these things. And I wish I remembered who it was, but I was just reading about some CEO, might have been Jeff Bezos, but maybe not, who's talking about going back to the well, and how he felt like you have to go out in the world and interact with people and remember what humanity is like in order to do your job well. And that was a CEO, let alone a community manager. We need to have those human interactions in order to refill the well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that so I've actually, like I said, I've faced burnout before. I've never worked for someone where I felt comfortable talking about that. So if you're like having issues with bringing that up to your employer, you're not weak. Like, it's just really hard, and you don't want to share that with people. So I think actually what is a really good way of doing this is like prevention before, having to problem solve after the fact. So a lot of burnout that I see among community builders I talk to is because they're not sure how actually valuable they are in the workplace. And that comes from working for companies that also don't know your value. And it's insidious. It's terrible for this profession. And so it's just really, really important that you, as a company, it's not ever too late to do this, but to actually start to say, like, here's the value that I bring to this business. And that way you can say, when somebody then comes to you at 10 o'clock at night with an email, like, why didn't you do this? You can say, because that doesn't tie back to my value. That's why I didn't do it. As opposed to being like, oh, I'm so sorry, I should have been online at 10 o'clock at night. You can say, no, that doesn't tie to this KPI, which is what I'm responsible for. So that is also a way of basically saying, I have strong boundaries, and I'm not going to let you cross them because I know my value here, and you can't make me question it. And so that's coming from a point of strength and not weakness.
I know one of the things that we try to do with our community management, hours that that people work is our as a general rule, we don't allow people to work double shifts, unless they're super okay with it, and and maybe we'll let it happen once, but we also try to give people breaks. We try to limit the number of hours. We've done some specific things just even from a scheduling standpoint to try to not let people burn themselves out. Just from the pure community management side. But I mean, it's definitely an ongoing battle and process. So.
I think there's something really cool there too about like paying it forward as we start to manage people. Let's make sure we're supporting them. So I really work hard to tell my team, listen, if you hit a wall and it's 3 p.m. and you're like, I'm just doing no good work, tell me, and like we'll figure out a way for you to get out of here or go for a walk or whatever. I think we can start to propagate this, amongst millennial managers, so that in the future this is less of an issue.
100%, and I think that it goes beyond just like working too much too. It goes into the content of what we're doing as well. My last job, I was working a lot with health communities, and people are sending in their stories all the time, and the stories were like so depressing, and I was terrible at just taking it all on myself. And when I realized that that was happening, I did have like an open, honest convo with my boss about it to kind of figure out what I could do, so that I wasn't just basically absorbing people's depression. But what ended up happening is I moved off of the depression-focused account for a while. But when that happened, another person on my team took over, and so we were just really honest with her and upfront, and like, hey, like if you see this happening to yourself, like please let us know. Like please be open and honest about if you are having this affect you in the same way that it affected me.
And I think too, to make sure you're using your vacation, because we need that time to step away, and we need that reminder that life in our communities will go on even if we're away for a few days, and to go kind of as off the grid as much as possible, and to really stake that claim and say, I'm not going to be available from these days to these days. If it needs to be handled immediately, this person can handle it. If not, it'll wait until Tuesday when I'm back.
Yeah, you raised a really good point, especially from the manager and employer side, right? And I think it's regardless of whether there's a system you can look and say, oh, how many vacation days do you have available versus, kind of like new work, which is vacation when you want to, as much as you want, as long as you get the work done, which means you never vacation because you're always getting work done. I think the manager, the last time someone who works for you took off, and maybe it's kind of forcing them to, right? Like, hey, you haven't taken off in a while. In the next month, I want you to plan at least 3 days where you're going to unplug, and actually just forcing them to do it would be, I think, pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was having lunch with a friend yesterday, and she said that her manager basically had that conversation with her and was like, yeah, I want you to go on this vacation, because she was thinking about taking a trip, I think, to China. And her manager said, oh yeah, you haven't taken any like real vacation. You've been working remotely on vacation. So I don't want you to take your computer with you. You are not allowed to take your computer with you on your vacation. And that's the sign of an amazing manager to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, if you're bad at working on vacation, go somewhere where you can't work on vacation. Go climb a mountain, or if that's too drastic, do something where you're not around data, where you don't have it. I know actually my friend, his wife always makes their family vacations in places where there's just bad data. Like, there's just no connection, so that he can't log in and work because he won't control himself otherwise. But you can set in those precautions too to make sure that you don't start working on your vacation and that you use it the time you need to recharge.
All right. Well, how about question number 4 here? which is how do you define and focus on success versus getting lost in the daily grind?
I'll jump in. I was actually going to mention this in the last answer. Words are hard. But part of the success of a team, I was a solo community manager, so I worked with clients by myself. So I was the community manager that handled it like directly with clients. And for the past year and a half, I've had a team. And one of the biggest things that has contributed to our success is communication. So we check in every day. We know what others are doing. We have processes in place, and we are honest with each other. Like so because the success of the community depends on us and our success of working together as a team. And the way that translates into being a freelancer is being honest with your clients. So being like, here are the things I need from you to get this done and to represent your community and to build this community for you. I need you to be open to communication and like set these processes in place. Let's do check-ins. I need clear answers. So it really goes back to clear communication, because there's so much happening externally that you have to have the internal processes in place to have a cohesive team, whether it's just you with a client or you with a team internally at a company, to make that work and to have a success, versus everything becoming a fire because you don't have the communication in place, you don't have the processes in place. So anytime something happens, everybody's scrambling to find the answers, and that's always a huge mess that nobody wants.
For me, I think it's really important to just make time, which I know sounds like one of those annoying things people say that isn't actionable, but that as soon as you let yourself get pulled into all the daily grind stuff, it's very hard to get out. So, just what was it, Wednesday, I realized I needed to really think about some strategic things and not focus on the daily grind. So when I woke up, I did not check my email at all. I got my notebook and I went for a walk, went to a coffee shop, got a chai, walked back, and ended up, spending, it was only like an hour total, but I wrote a bunch of things in my notebook that I think I would have had a really hard time doing sitting at a computer with emails flying at me. So, even just making a little bit of time, putting it on your calendar to say, like, this time, during this period, please nobody bother me, I'm working on the big things. I think it works.
I will reiterate that. As of 2 weeks ago, I stopped looking at my phone in the morning, and I got my life back. It's been amazing. So every morning I actually set out to basically develop a process for the day and how each piece of what I'm going to be working on maps back to my ultimate goals. And Brock, you did a great job of explaining how process is so key to not getting bogged down in the day-to-day. If you don't have a process for something that you're doing, stop doing it and create a process, because if you don't have a process, how are you going to take a vacation? You have no one to offboard that process to. You're never going to be able to go offline. So that fantasy of climbing up a mountain and with your backpack and no phone is never going to happen if you don't have a process in place. And that goes down to all the way down into really tiny details, all the way up to processes for getting a project done that will turn into a product later. So process for everything. And I think startups are actually, big businesses get this right. Unfortunately, sometimes in an annoying, bureaucratic way, but startups are often missing people who are process driven. And those are the people that they're great managers, and they are great just at keeping people motivated, because you know where you are in a process and you know how you can get things done that day and be the most effective person possible. And yeah, stop checking your emails in the morning, because nothing good comes from that.
I think too, kind of when you notice yourself doing something that you're questioning whether you should be doing it, looking at it in terms of, okay, is this benefiting me and my community in the next day? Is this benefiting it in the next week, or is this benefiting it in the long term? And kind of looking at every single action you're doing in that framework, and making sure that you're not only doing this benefits it today, this benefits it tomorrow, that you're spending equal time on the things that benefit it for the long term, and prioritizing that.
I really like this idea of auditing the daily grind. You know, we've gone through, weeks where it's like, okay, this is now time to do meeting cleansing, right? So how many times do you just realize, like, holy crap, we got these reoccurring meetings, and reoccurring meetings are the worst. As far as like just adding to the grind and the burnout, right? They're just stealing time away from you, and so you go through these meeting cleanse periods where you say, all right, every meeting I'm in charge of that's reoccurring, can I take that meeting and cut it in half for a time frame now? Next time I have that meeting, can I ask everyone, hey, what can we do different here so you're taking something away from this meeting, and it's not burning you out too. I love that idea, Carrie, of the not checking your email first thing in the morning, and probably for me too. Even Facebook, right? Like I bet that would help a lot of just not grabbing my phone. Like literally, it's the first thing I do. I don't even have my eyes open, and I'm like launching for that thing. And I think I even have memorized how to flip around to get to Facebook, then email, and yeah. And I think you know what? I think I do it because I'm justifying to myself that, oh no, this is so that the rest of the day isn't so crazy, right? I think in my head, well, I'll just get through some emails right now. Yeah, so I'm gonna try that. I like that.
I got newsfeed eradicator, so I actually don't even have a Facebook newsfeed anymore, and I don't have the Facebook apps on my phone at all. I check them from the browser because dopamine is a thing, and they have totally established that habit for me, but it's not as bad as like having the Messenger app and having like the Facebook app and having the Groups app and, checking them constantly, because I know that feeling very well. Like, I feel like I'm accomplishing things because I'm responding to people, but actually you're just distracting yourself, and you're not actually, that's not self-care. It's not sustainable self-care, like checking your Facebook messages. It gives you a quick, hit of dopamine, and then it goes away immediately, and then you want more. It's basically like a drug.
I think I will miss, though, to see who's upvoted my yaks. So, I don't know. But yeah, maybe that's smart. Go ahead.
I think doing a literal audit for a week can help too. If you're kind of questioning if you are spending your the right amount of time on the right things, doing a literal audit, like using like the free harvest plan to just kind of, as you're switching tasks, noting how much time you're spending on different things, can really help see where you need to reprioritize.
I'm going to bring a question here. This is kind of leading us to our final question about tips. Hey, Jen, thanks for hanging out with us. Jen asks, what are your tips for being supportive and making sure others don't burn out, especially if they never sleep? I wouldn't buy them coffee. That's step one.
I think that goes against everything Jen stands for, not providing them with more caffeine.
I think that one thing, it's sort of like what we're doing here. Burnout isn't like some sort of a cliche thing, but it sort of is a little bit. Like just opening up and having a conversation with your friends that work or subject to burnout, Like just starting that conversation and asking them the same questions that we're asking here. Like, have the people that really look at themselves and go, how may I show burnout, and that sort of a thing. Because then if somebody is actually describing it to you, it makes it a little bit more real, and then you can start that conversation. And I was joking around with Jen on Twitter earlier. I said burnout buddies. We were talking about that, like having somebody be your burnout buddy and just saying, hey, I want to help protect you against this. You can help me against this. Here's how we can do it. That could go a really long way.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's multiple ways you can do that. You can have your one burnout buddy. Katie, Kobe, and I started similar jobs on the same day, so we're just constantly how's your stuff coming along? Oh my god. And I would also say, to be the most mildly self-promoting anybody could ever do, come to Community Manager Breakfast or go to a CMX meetup or create your own meetup. Find those people you can get around and be like, hey, we all feel the same way, we all care about this thing, and sort of re-energize.
And pull them out of, if it's like a coworker that you're trying to be supportive of, you want to be wary not to kind of like take their work onto yourself, because that's just going to add burnout for you. But like, take them out of the office for a lunch or for drinks after work, and don't talk about work. Like, just talk about life, and figure out where their other priorities are, and where you can kind of encourage them to help find their own time and their own space to avoid burnout.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that about the burnout buddies concept. And so one of the things that I found is, if I'm feeling burnt out, I don't, as much as I love my friends, and if they're going through burnout too, I can't take their burnout. So I can't take responsibility for checking on them, because I need to get out of my own little burnout first. So it's like the whole empathy thing, because we're huge on empathy. And I used to be the person that, like, even if I was having the worst day, I would make, like, if my friend was having a problem, I would check on them, I would take on, listen, and then there was work, and there's all this stuff, and we can't, and that's what, it's like this burnout cycle, because we can't get out of our burnout as long as we're helping others get out of theirs. So that's where being super aware of yourself comes in, because then you know that you're kind of having a low day, so you have to recharge before reaching out and, like, touching base with a friend that, like, hey, how you doing? Notice that you're kind of, you know, whatever the triggers are that you're seeing. So I think it's important that being a good burnout buddy is good. You probably don't want to both be in the burnout cycle when you're checking on them at the same time. So.
And I just wanted to add to what we're saying about how we have this conversation with people. So it may not be best to come up to somebody and say, hey, you know, and evaluating their performance or how their appearance is to you, because that's a perception that you have. So you might want to start the conversation by saying, you know, sometimes I feel like this when this is going on, and tell them about your own experience first, and they will tell you if that's what they're feeling, because they'll identify with what you're saying to them. And I think that's a better approach, a safer approach, because you don't really know what that person is going through.
Yeah, actually, when I was facing burnout once, I talked to Susan on a Skype call, and she shared with me first, like, what she had been going through, and I mean, that immediately, like, bonded us together. So Susan is like, she's awesome. I would say, especially, it sounds like Jen is, like, managing someone who she said doesn't sleep a lot and maybe has insomnia. I might just sit down with that person and do an audit with them, like, what is their version of happiness, and, like, what is it that makes them feel, like, satisfied with their work. I know that sounds very, like, hippy dippy, but I actually have been reading this book called The 80-20 Way, I think is what it's called. I don't recommend it. The author's kind of he would not resonate well with the community crowd, but it's about, like, optimizing your time and optimizing self-care, especially with more of your time. So there's really, like, 7 key things you can do, and make sure that you're auditing and doing them every single day. So I would sit down and, like, really map out with that person, like, what their ideal schedule looks like, what their ideal day looks like, what are the things that stimulate them and give them energy, and how can you bring more of that to work. Yeah.
On that note, if you haven't read Carrie's post on the self-care checklist, go do it, because that's a good way to apply that framework.
It's based on the book. Yeah, so.
I kind of recognized it from what you just said.
Yeah, because I've been thinking about it a lot recently, is, like, reframing my own, because I often have insomnia as well, and so, like, reframing what a successful day really looks like for me, and what happiness really is for me. Baseline happiness, not, like, ecstatic, like, happiness, but, like, just happiness every day. So
I've actually printed out your like 6 check boxes, and I'm keeping that up by my desk.
All right, we are on the last question. This is about tips about drawing the line. So multiple tips. So you can have as many as you want. What tips have you found to help draw the line and say no?
I think first you have to define where that line is. That was actually a piece of advice I got from the operations manager at my old company, and kind of saying, it's not okay for my employer to expect me to do X, to do whatever that line is. It could be something as simple as like working more than 8 hours on a weekend, or jumping into meetings while you're on vacation, or something as severe as like a moral line, like I'm not willing to lie to my community about something. But kind of predefining where that line is for you that you don't want to cross can help you realize when you're getting close to it.
To kind of build on that, I think that I love being a community manager. It's one of my favorite things. Even if it's a daily grind or if it's a small project, I love engagement with my community. So even if it's something that you're passionate about and you like, you have to know that you can't be on all the time. There's just no way, even if you love them. And I haven't had this in a really long time, but there are sometimes you get so involved with your community that you want to follow up with like individual members, and there are things that you want to do, and you're constantly on. And even though it doesn't feel like work because you're having fun doing it and you love it, it's still work. Your brain is still on work mode. You're still on all the time. So I think setting that boundary, and as community managers, we're publicly out there. So knowing that whatever boundaries you're setting on your social media, on your personal accounts, and everything else, I've had members find my from Google Plus to my personal Facebook page and message me on there. And I'm like, whatever question you have, here's ask us in the community. One of us will answer it. Making sure I'm not answering their question in that personal conversation, but redirecting them so that it goes through the proper channels. That's huge, because no matter how much we love it, it's still work whenever you're on. So you have to be careful and set that boundary, and just treat yourself. Honestly, take whatever it is, even if for me, it's at 2 o'clock going out for a drive and go and get some iced coffee and getting away from the desk and my computer, and that little 15-minute break helps. And then the bigger things that we all talked about, like with the vacations and everything, and the little indulgences throughout the day also will help. So whatever puts a smile on your face, go watch some cat videos or send stupid gifts to your friends when you're on chat and you need a break for 5 minutes. Do what works for you.
I think to build on that, there are different ways of addressing burnout. Less work is the obvious one, but maybe it's certain days you don't commute to the office. I'm working for a company that's in Mountain View. I'm in Oakland. If I went in every day, I'd be real burnout. So, we agreed I wouldn't go in every day. If that gets you extra sleep, that's great. Working from home 1 day a week, even if you are close to the office, so you can just focus and not have distractions, is huge. Or even if it's, sort of as was mentioned, just like a hour-long walk in the middle of the day, and you're just I need to be able to leave for a little while and recharge, and maybe I work later because of it, but figuring out what those levers are that you can pull on.
I think one of the other tips too is, oh no, go ahead.
I just want to bring this in. Gordon tweeted this in and said, "Remember that no is a complete sentence. People will get upset when I set boundaries. Not my issue." I think that's kind of interesting, because the first thing I thought of is just say no. It sometimes amazes you that they're like, oh, okay. It's not like people are purposely trying to burn you out and put more on your plate, but if you don't say no and just keep taking stuff, well, you might become the easy way to get work done, right? Oh, hey, I better call Carrie, because she always gets stuff done, and I have a bunch of stuff I need done. And if you say no, then I got to go find somebody else. And I think hopefully that that person will let you know, like, no is just not really an answer I can deal with right now. Can we work on it together? Like, I need help. Maybe they're looking for help. So anyways, so just say no.
Yeah, like we're naturally helper personalities. That's kind of why we're community managers. And I've had situations where people have told me, like, stop helping everybody. Let people figure it out for themselves. I know you think it's easier, it takes you less time than it will take them to learn it, but they need to learn it. Stop helping people, which is really, really hard to do as a community manager, because that's kind of all we want to do. But
And I really do think, Brew, you're right. People don't realize sometimes, like, that because you're nice and you're like, yeah, I can help you out with that, they think you have tons of time, and they just have no sense that you're overwhelmed. So even if you're not saying no, even if you're like, you know what, yeah, I'll find a way to slip that in, but I'm super swamped, so like, yeah, I may not get to it. Just starting to like build that picture of like, hey, I'm not just this guy who's sitting around waiting for work to do.
Yeah, if you have a process also for your day every day, you can confidently say no, because you're like, no, I know that I have this many hours of work to do today. No. And again, most people actually won't get upset when you assert your boundaries. I will say that jerks will get upset when you say your boundaries, and you shouldn't be letting their energy into your life anyway, because it's just not productive. And again, that all goes back to like having a sense of value in yourself, in your work, having self-worth, building up those kinds of skills so that you know what your boundaries are and know when someone is pushing you beyond what is healthy for you. So just say no.
I feel like we should all go on mute or off of mute and then just do a collective big no. It'd just feel good, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think it would.
Oh.
Get it? I just said no.
Oh, good.
You had to explain yourself. It's not funny when you have to explain your joke.
Oh, the shade that's getting thrown. Woo, good thing there's only a minute left in this.
I am picking up what's being thrown down here. All right, so all right, guys, we are out of time. This has been great. Can't wait to watch it again. Can't wait for the recaps. And hopefully we're helping somebody out there. So if you're tuning in right now and you are burnt out, just say no to the next request and unplug your phone, go for a walk, rewatch this, and get some advice, and go get some help and a hug. Big CMGR hug. All right. So anyways, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Bye.